Okay. So much for spirit. Okay, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. May I have attention, please? All quiet, please. Thank you. So today, go ahead and take out your notes. We're going to be continuing with the administration of Teddy Roosevelt. We'll recap to make sure we got the Panama Canal issue nailed down tight, and then we'll move on to some other aspects of Teddy Roosevelt's foreign policy, and then we'll see what happens when he decides not to run for president. Encourages his good buddy William Howard Taft to run for president. He becomes president, and then no sooner than Taft becomes president, Teddy Roosevelt's like, "You're not doing a very good job. You kind of suck. You're not very good." And so he runs against him. Yeah, so he'll end up in 1912 in the election with two Republicans running against each other. And who wins? The Democrat, Woodrow Wilson. Okay. So anyway, we'll be getting into that. We might actually get into the 1912 election yet, but that's okay. Just a reminder, what's coming up for in-class people. Those of you guys at home, we're going to need to schedule a time sometime when things calm down. It's okay. This just has to happen before you graduate. This civics test. That is a state requirement. And we'll take care of that on Thursday in here. 100 questions. It'll take a little bit of time, and some of you guys will finish earlier than others. So, bring your music or whatever kinds of things as the other folks are wrapping up. That's always the case. And then hopefully there'll be some time for some more instruction. If not, then, we'll see you after the break. Next week, no school. Although, having said that, some of the folks at home, I may be scheduling, because I'm doing this with seniors, I may be scheduling meetings. I'm going to be passing this around today. This is a schedule for the IA meeting that I will have with you. Oh, it's okay, you big whiner. Good grief. You've already identified a topic. You've gotten, 5 sources. Okay, so we just need to sort of sit down, have a conversation, and come up with, hopefully, a good question that doesn't need to be tweaked, but even if it does, no big whoop. Okay, so we'll schedule those for actually even beginning after school today. Some of you guys might want to go for that. I had one person from the Blue Day sign up for that. Mostly, though, you'll have, if it's easier for you, you can sign up for the Green Days, so like Thursday, and then the Monday and Wednesday after the break. So 20-minute increments usually is enough, but I'm not going to schedule too many on one day because I don't want to have like a massive doctor's office backup in my lounge just outside the door, okay, because I'm going to have individual meetings with students. Okay, so anyway, that's coming up. We'll also be talking about the extra credit opportunity on the presidential election predictions. I'll walk you through that and everything you need to do there. It's an extra credit opportunity. That is very good. Up to 10 points if you nail it perfectly. But even you should be able to get plenty of points by doing fairly accurate predictions. Hopefully the polls will be, and I think even the polls weren't too bad off even 4 years ago. I'd say most of the ones that went just barely for Trump that helped him to win the election were pretty close going into the election. So, depending on how you think it falls, you can make those predictions. So we'll explain that. Also, if you were to do the retake for Chapter 1 or the retake for forms of government, get that in by Friday. Some of you guys have already done that. The retake for Chapter 1 was 2 sentences for each of the items on the study guide, and the retake for the forms of government one, that's worth up to 2 points. I already posted on Google Classroom a series of, I think 20 questions. And basically, it was you got all the information from the notes. So if you had that, really easy to do that if you wanted to get those points there. Okay? So, questions so far? All right, let's go ahead and stand for the pledge. Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all. Okay, we've got about a minute video here from Student Council Officer Daniel Kim. Here you go.
Monday will be the second to last day of our Spirit Week, and it's going to be country versus country choruses. You can choose either one you want to dress up as, and it's a competition with 0 prizes. The last 2 days of the week will also be the last days of Spirit Week. With
Spirit.
Line everyone nice in the hallway. Also, congratulations to the volleyball team. They beat Rimrock last week. A very big victory that they worked really hard for. If you see any of the volleyball players, please give them congratulations. They deserve it. Movie night. This October. More details coming soon. Please check your emails this week to vote on the movie. We'll be showing 2 different movies at the same time. One will be a horror movie, the other one will be
COVID 2020.
and the Halloween movie. Again, check your emails this week.
No trick-or-treating. It's the horror movie. Okay, thank you. Yeah, actually, I hope that goes well. I hope that goes well because a lot of movie theaters are starting to shut down because the business model isn't working out very well to have large indoor crowds getting entertainment. Yeah. So, all right, let's turn our attention to various different things. The sheet in front of you, the presidential election prediction. I do this every 4 years, so pay careful attention. Austin, if you want to get the points here. This is an extra credit opportunity. This is going to be due for you. You guys should plan on bringing this in with you on Monday, no later than Monday, November the 2nd. So that's the day before the actual election because that's the last green day that we have. And you guys know that when you come back after the break, we see you like 3 times, so after the break. And then the week after that, it's going to be we've got to get this figured out and so forth, because the 2 green days in the week after that, like the last week in October, are PSAT and SAT days. So that does kind of muddle things up a little bit, so it'll require some careful planning. So watch on that. So I don't think I'll see you officially like in here. We'll figure something out. But as far as like the first week in November, when the election's being held, the election's on the Tuesday, make sure to bring this filled out on no later than that Monday, because you can't bring it on the Wednesday, because like, yeah, I predicted every single one right. After the election. Although, having said that, in some of the states, and there's always going to be some states that are close, this year it's a little bit more, you're not going to get the results as quickly, because a lot more states are relying a lot more on mail-in ballots and that sort of thing. So that takes a little bit of time to add them up. Some states, Idaho's got some good familiarity with Oregon, Washington. They've been doing that for a while. And so they've got a process that's pretty well established. As the ballots come in, sometimes they'll like add them up, but they won't release the results yet. So like in Idaho, I always know the first results that come out on election day are the absentee ballots that have already come in, or the people that voted like early. They showed up and actually voted early. But some other states, it might take a little bit of time for those to trickle in. Keep in mind, this is interesting. Probably this election more so than many other presidential elections, you're going to get a lot of people voting early. So decisions that are made that are critical are like taking place right now and in the next couple of weeks, as opposed to like in the week before the election. Does that make sense? Because like I got my ballot in the mail yesterday, all right? And like I think my daughter already filled hers out, and that's ready to be delivered and submitted and so forth, okay? So, yeah. By the way, what musical performer is on the Idaho ballot for president? He is on the Idaho ballot, and he's in a number of other states. Idaho's, it's not too hard. There's 2 independents. There's several small parties, obviously Republican and Democrat candidates. So, anyway, what's that? Kanye wins Idaho. I don't know. We'll have to come up with a different color. You know, maybe something sparkly or whatever for Kanye. So I suppose if you want to predict Kanye. Oh, by the way, President Trump is back at his house, back at the White House where he resides. So we'll see how that all plays out. It's been very interesting. As you know, he went, I think you guys knew this. I haven't seen you since Friday, but he did go to Walter Reed Hospital to receive treatment for COVID. And now he's feeling well enough to move his treatment regimen now to the White House. So keep an eye on things. Tomorrow is the one vice presidential debate between Kamala Harris and Mike Pence. Okay, so that's going to be taking place in Utah. It'll be televised, so you don't have to go there. Were you planning on going? And just kind of like, can I come in? No? Oh, limited seating, huh? Yeah. All right, so let's take a look and see how we do this thing. What you're going to do, and you want to be very clear on this, I've tried to make it really, really clear on how to do this correctly, and I've had to elaborate, particularly to people who aren't as familiar with how the Electoral College system works, as in people who haven't had government yet. Write down the number of electoral votes in the column of the presidential candidate who you predict will win. And I suppose if you're going to put Kanye, you can put a little separate column over there on the left or right or wherever you want to do that, okay? All right. Whoever gets, so add the columns, okay? Add the columns. 270 or more electoral votes is the predicted winner. In order to get credit, you need to also color in the map. If you flip over to the back, yeah, we got traditional blue for the Democratic Joe Biden and red for Republican Donald Trump. If you wanna go rogue, you could put a different color for them. Just indicate clearly which color's which. Okay?
Do blue for Trump, red for Biden.
Oh my gosh, Danton, you're just, yeah. But as long as it's clear, then I'll understand. Actually, the main thing is going to be putting the information correctly on the columns, because I think that's going to be where I'm going to be like looking, because every once in a while you get a discrepancy, and so if there is a discrepancy, I'll go with what you've got written down in the column. Okay? Get it turned in. The absolute is Tuesday. That's not a school day for you. That's your at-home day, but if you brought it by on that day, that's fine. There's a variety of different sites. I've got one of them up here. The 270towin.com is up here. And basically, it's kind of like, so this is kind of how it works. A lot of them kind of work this way. If I were to scroll down further, you could see more specific information about Nebraska and Maine. But let's just say, for example, red, dark red. Somebody was asking in one of the classes, what does it mean if it's darker as opposed to lighter? Yeah, this is like solid Republican, solid for Trump, Alabama. So on your thing right here, make sure you do this correctly, because if you're like, well, I think Trump's going to get like 8 of them and Biden's going to get 1. No. It's winner take all for each of the states. When you get to Maine and Nebraska, I've broken it out into a winner take all kind of subset. So Alabama, you would probably, some of you guys have already, who are aware, this kind of helps you. This is like the state of the race right now. This will be changed. In fact, the one I had up yesterday was different. Arizona was brown yesterday based on the polling information that's come out recently. The folks here have put it as light blue, which is leaning toward Biden. Okay? The brown ones are the ones that are too close to call at this point. Georgia kind of surprises me because that's been like a solid Republican in the past. But yeah, like some of the ones that Trump picked up last time, like Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, and so forth, those are ones that he can ill afford to lose this time, and Biden is leading in the polling information right now. So that's why that indicates there. But just be very, very careful that you put the number completely on one side or the other, and then conveniently you can add them up at the bottom, and then you add up the 2 columns, and then whoever gets more than 270 wins. Okay? Take a look at Maine and Nebraska, and if I were to scroll down further, you could see they were more clear on this. And flip over on the back, you'll see I tried on the map to draw the congressional districts. I don't know if I did a very good job there, but like Nebraska doesn't do winner take all. They break it out into the 3 congressional districts. And so if you win one of the congressional districts, boom, you get 1 electoral vote. If you win another, then you get that electoral vote. They also have, like, whoever gets the most in the state overall gets the 2, the bonus 2. So that's why Nebraska, if you look at the really tiny one, it's actually got an equal population roughly to the other 2 congressional districts, but it's more urban. It's the area around Lincoln, Nebraska, where the University of Nebraska is located. A little bit more urban. not as conservative Republican. So they're predicting right now that Biden and Trump are pretty close in that area. Although for the state as a whole, they predict Trump's going to win that. Similarly, in Maine, there's one congressional district that's too close to call. I think that's the Maine 1st congressional district. Anyway, and then the other one likely to go for Biden, and then probably the state leaning toward Biden. So that's how that works out. Okay? So that's why instead of 51, all states plus the District of Columbia, there's 56 contests. So it's a little bit confusing, but you guys pretty clear on that? Okay. So do the research. Is it looking very good for Trump right now? No. If the leaners and likely and solid Democrat ones come in, Biden's already got the 270. So even if all of the swing states, too close to call at this point, come in for Trump, that's not enough. Some of you guys are looking here and you're like, okay, well, there's a lot of red. One of the students was pointing out, there's a lot of red. How could Trump be losing? There's not a lot of people in some of those states. Have you been to Wyoming? Have you been to Idaho? Okay.
No way Montana got 3. There's only 2 people in the
The minimum number of electoral votes you get in a state is 3.
Where's the third person? There's only a population of 2.
You don't understand. You don't understand. Okay. You have one congressional district. That's 1. Every state gets a bonus 2. Okay. So yeah, go ahead. Good luck. Change the Constitution if you don't like it. That requires 2/3 of the House, 2/3 of the Senate, 3/4 of the states. Okay? All right. You guys pretty clear on how to do this? All right, so take your time. Like I say, I think I want to say 4 years ago, maybe it was 8 years ago, we did have a student get every single one of them right. I would expect if you do some basic research, I mean, look at every state that is pretty solid in its coloring. I think that's probably the way it's going to end up being. And I want to say that's about 30 plus. The ones that are going to be like the determining ones are going to be like, Florida, Ohio, predicting those. And watch the trends. See if the predictions start moving in a different direction. 4 years ago, who was predicted to win the Electoral College? Hillary was. And she also did win the popular vote, but that wasn't enough. Obviously, you need to win in those various different locations. So we'll see how it plays out. Okay? Oh, just settle down. This is a democracy. We're going to have a peaceful transition from one election to the other election. It's the way it's supposed to happen. It's going to happen that way. Okay? Oh, ye of little faith. Yeah. Yes. Okay. All right. Now, next. I don't know which side I'm going to start this on, but sign up for, and we've got spots after the break. Honestly, if you get the question beforehand, then going into the break, you've got that time period for which to do research. Knowing what the question is, if you wait until afterwards, that's fine too. The students yesterday, blue students, pretty much stuck with the blue days, and I asked them to, although one student did sign up for today, like right after school, which is cool. Some of you guys want to sign up for right after school, that's fine. I've got 250, 310, 330, 350, and 410. Yeah. So all you have to do is come. Typically what happens is after we have the conversation and come up with the question, I write down the question, students just take a picture of it. So they got it on their phone. And then they have to decipher my messy handwriting, but yeah. Okay? Or they can just handwrite it out. It's usually, we try and keep it fairly short and simple. Questions about the signing up part. Are you guys ready to sign up? Which side of the room should I start on? Okay, there we go. Okay. There you go. All right. Look at the times available. I've got all the various different times available. Okay. Okay, students. Okay, you guys ready? Let's see what the last thing. Okay. Okay. It's been passed. Okay. All right. Do this kindly and gently. I'm hoping we can have like a peaceful like presidential election. And I hope we can also have a peaceful like pass the sign-up sheet around. Good grief. Oy, 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 oy. Will we make it? Okay, you guys ready? All right. Let's consider where we were last time. Okay? All right. You guys ready? Panama. All right, here we go. Panama was chosen, of course, as a site for a canal to connect the Atlantic Ocean and the Pacific Ocean. I mean, it was obvious. I mean, people have been talking about it for years and years and years. Good grief. Why do we have to go all the way around the southern tip of South America in order to get ships from one ocean to the other? Well, no, I mean, it's like if you go to Panama and so forth, you're like, oh, it looks so small on the map. But do you know how much energy it takes to lift a cargo ship full of goods into the air? In fact, a lot of times what had been done, guys, please, a lot of times what had been done is ships would actually pull into one side of Panama, and then they would take the goods, they would porterage, they would basically like take them over land to the other side and then load them up on ships that way. I mean, that's what had been done for years and years. It's a hassle, and it's going to be so much better. When we finally do get the Panama Canal, which opens up in 1914, did you write that down? Okay. It opens up in 1914 after $400 million is spent on the construction, and those are in early 1900 dollars. That's a lot of money, okay? After that is done, you're going to see a lot of ships going back and forth. Who owns and controls the Panama Canal? The United States owned and controlled it as a result of how things went down. I'll recap that with you guys just to make sure that we have that all correct. Can you go move goods and so forth in the Panama Canal today? Yes, and they've improved it. They've made it wider because modern cargo ships are much wider, and so you needed a wider facility in order to get those things through. The ships that were on the seas, in the early 1900s, not as wide. Nowadays, man, you got like massive cargo ships in the oceans bringing goods from one continent to the other. Very, very significant that way. Okay? So we needed that. Teddy Roosevelt wanted it. The negotiations with Colombia didn't go very well, did they?
No.
Roosevelt offered, as it says right there. Roosevelt offered, we'll pay $10 million and then we'll pay $250,000, rent every year. Colombia counteroffered for saying, oh, we want $15 million more. Roosevelt's like, I'm not in a position to counteroffer. It's kind of like, I don't know, how many of you guys have got like, or maybe you got parents that like to haggle, like maybe when you buy a car or something like that. I had a brother-in-law once, he was a really good haggler. He could out-haggle an Egyptian, all right? I mean, and those guys know how to haggle, going way, way back. Because it's sort of like, okay, let's say I know what my bottom line is that I'm willing to spend. And you know what your bottom line is as far as what you'll sell it at, right? So you start out way high, and I come in way low. And then we go back and forth and back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. And sometimes I walk away to create the impression that, oh, no, it's over, to try and sort of create an impression for you to just really drop that price low. I always pointed out, it's like if you're in a haggling situation with a country that has traditional like haggling, you don't feel like you've gotten close to their bottom line until they feel like they have to kick their kids out of the house because they won't make any money. No, they'll sell you. They'll sell it to you. They will sell it to you.
The point is to learn how to haggle.
Exactly. So my brother-in-law is really good at it. I don't have the patience for that. I'm like, what's the price? It's just like, what's the price? Give me the price. Did Teddy Roosevelt want to haggle with the Colombians? No. What was his plan B? Support a Panamanian revolution. Did you get that in your notes? Yeah. He supported a Panamanian revolution. It's kind of like, I got my big stick here. I'm going to speak softly. Oh, maybe I just won't speak at all. To you, conversation over. Colombians weren't happy about that because when the Colombians tried to put down the 1903 rebellion, the independence movement, okay, Shh. When the Colombians tried to put it down, who was there to intervene and prevent Colombian military from crushing the Panamanians? The United States of America. And what was one of the first things the United States of America did after recognizing the Panamanian independent government? Yeah, we negotiated a treaty for the canal. We got the land, the Panama Canal zone, and we built it. Was it easy? No, it was very hard. I mean, the French couldn't pull it off when they tried initially because of landslides and disease and difficulties, but we pulled it off. Took us, 11 years? But we got it done. 11 years, from 1903, and actually it may have been a little bit before that because I can't tell you exactly what year, we broke ground and started. But you guys figure this one out? Are you guys done? Should I pass it over to the other side of the classroom? All right. You come in, we'll have a conversation about what it is you're interested in doing the research on. And then we'll come up with a question so that you have guidance. Basically, my goal is in the meeting with you guys and in the online meetings that I have, the Zoom meetings with the students at home, the basic thing is to focus on what it is you're really interested in. Sometimes it narrows, sometimes it expands, sometimes whatever. We have to find some issue of controversy. And I'm really good at coming up with questions. Okay? Comparative questions or yes or no questions, things like that. Okay? Oh, by the way, did I mention how I feel when I show up for a meeting and you don't show up? It's not good. So whatever time you signed up for, make sure. Does everyone know their times? Okay. Do we need to bring it back over here so you guys can look at the thing? Did you? Good. Okay, good. And it'll be right in here. I'll have you sit right here, and I'll be right here, and we'll all be blah, 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 social distancing, safe, yada, yada, yada. And then you'll walk out of here with a question. Ready to go. Boom. When's your paper due? December 18th. First draft, 100 points. Yeah, I may be doing some in-class peer review, but you definitely want to get some outside of class proofreading, peer review, parent, take a look at it to get it polished up. Oh, it has to be like a draft. Yeah. You want to do the outline first. And if you get, the outline, when we talk, it's very, very simple. You don't actually want to make it too complicated because it'll take too many words. And unlike the extended essay, this thing, you got to get it done in 2,200 words. And the guts of it, the investigation, 1,300 words, give or take, which is not a lot. It actually ends up being quite concise. Okay? All right, back to, so we got Teddy Roosevelt. Did anyone get confused about this palindrome here? This is sort of a reminder that Teddy Roosevelt is the man with the plan, and it's a canal, and Panama. Shh. And literally, you have to start backwards reading it here. A man, a plan, a canal, Panama. Got it? All right, now, next. Put this in your notes. In your notes, in the sheet that I gave you, you have it. I think we're about, 4 lines from the bottom now, over on the far right. It's called Preventative Intervention. Preventative Intervention. This is a Roosevelt policy as far as to Latin America. It's also sometimes referred to, as you can see the slide up here, the Roosevelt corollary to the Monroe Doctrine. Remember the Monroe Doctrine, it basically says to European powers, stay out of the business of independent Latin American countries. They're independent, leave them alone, don't try and take them over. Now, of course, European countries like Britain and Germany are going to invest in those Latin American countries, but what happens if those Latin American countries can't pay the loans? I mean, it's not like we're ever going to have that problem that we owe so much money to other parts of the world that they would be like, I don't know, that banker that has a conversation with you when you stop paying your home loan. What do they do when you stop paying your home loan? They take your home, or they restructure it in such a way to make sure that if you still want to live there, you need to follow the rules. All right, so get this. Roosevelt's corollary, or preventative intervention, is basically Roosevelt saying, hey, Britain, Germany, other countries, don't think that you can come in and take over the governments or part of the governments of Latin America if they're not paying their loans to you. That's our job. You're like, what? This is where the United States will intervene. Put this down. I'll give you 2 examples. Oh, and by the way, before I forget, because I knew there was another thing, we're not, I think I mentioned this to you before, we're not going to do a quiz on chapter 28. I will schedule the quiz on the Zen chapter. Danton, quiet. On the Zen chapter for right after the break. So for you guys, I think that will be, I want to probably put it as like the Wednesday after the break. And then we're getting close to wrapping up this unit, and I don't want to have the unit exam on the same week. So we'll figure out a way to get that to you, like, and it's going to be kind of messy because it's like, well, the following week, PSAT, SAT. Anyway, we'll get that figured out, but I'm not going to give you the final exam on this unit during the same week. I try not to, as a quiz. But there'll be a 10-point quiz. I'll give you the study guide for the Zen chapter, and I'll give you the link so you can read that directly online. Howard Zen likes to write books and isn't necessarily as interested in making lots of money off of them. So he makes his books available, which is cool, free on the internet for people to read. Okay? And he's got lots of examples of things where the United States intervenes in other countries in Latin America, which is going to be really good because at the end of this unit, I'm going to have you do your first IB essay exam. You'll come in here, and I can tell you already, the question's going to have to do with United States intervention in overseas activities. Obviously, you'll want to bring in the Spanish-American War. That's probably the biggest example, but there'll be other examples. Like, for example, here we go. Write this down. 1905. Write that down. In 1905, the United States took over part of the government responsibility for Dominican Republic. I'll tell you exactly. The tax collection part, or the tariff collection part. The United States is like, you guys don't seem to be doing a very good job of collecting tariffs, so we're going to do that. That's like the import taxes, stuff that's brought into the Dominican Republic for sale. The United States takes over that function. Thanks. Yeah, it's kind of like, you know, when you like restructure your loan, the government, the bank might come in and say, hey, wow, we're going to like take over your budget. We'll give you this for food and clothing and shelter, but we need to make sure that some of the money is coming our way too. No, you don't have to. And you'll notice that I've got one person that's scheduled on a Green Day who's from the Blue group. Okay? So is that working out so far? Good. Yeah, I mean, there's a preference, obviously, because then you don't have to. But the seniors are interesting. A lot of them ended up scheduling on the other day just because they've got a car and they just, you know, it just worked better for their schedule. So it's all going to be after school anyway. Okay? Other questions on that? All right, let me give you the next example. 1906. 1906. This isn't just the United States coming in to help out with banks and collecting taxes. We sent the Marines. In 1906, we sent the Marines to Cuba. Now, that was not too long after Cuba became independent. 1906 to Cuba. And, so we're going to be meeting today. Good. So we'll see you. We've got 2 today, and then 3 on Thursday, 2 right when we get back, and then 2 on some of you guys did on the Blue Day. Okay, good. All right, good. So the president of Cuba actually asked the United States to help out. Okay? So we had a sympathetic president in Cuba that's looking around going, I can't handle all this stuff. So it's kind of like, I don't know, an analogy, a bad analogy would be, let's say, a local official going, wow, things are getting crazy in my streets. I need some help from the state, or I need some help from the federal government for law enforcement. In this instance, though, it's the Cuban government going, I need some help from the United States of America, and we sent the Marines in. And you'll see, especially when you look at the Zen chapter, the United States does that frequently before the Spanish-American War and then also afterwards, sending in the troops to Latin American countries to make sure that things work out good, especially according to what our interests are. Does that make sense? All right. Now, let's talk a little bit about Teddy Roosevelt as a peacemaker. I don't really have a slide for it. Teddy Roosevelt as a peacemaker. We've actually already covered this very early on in your notes, this unit. What was that war, 1904, 1905, that Teddy Roosevelt intervened to help negotiate a peace agreement between two countries at war? They almost went to war, Britain and Venezuela, but an actual war between two countries that took place in East Asia. And Russia, very good. Write it down. The Japanese actually were the ones to initiate it because they're like, hey, we're winning this war. Teddy Roosevelt, can you help officiate a treaty? And of course, the treaty came out pretty well in favor of Japan because they were winning the war. So way to go, Teddy Roosevelt. One of the early instances of the United States getting involved in the interests of other countries in the world to reach peace agreements. It's actually quite significant. As you go into the 20th century, you'll see examples. I think next year you'll learn about like Jimmy Carter, president number 39. He helped Egypt and Israel reach an agreement, a peace agreement, after many, many wars that they had had with each other. Even President Trump recently hosted, I want to say about like a couple of weeks ago or so, hosted a signing of an agreement between Kosovo and Serbia to help end some of the friction that had been going on between those countries. So that's a role that presidents can play. And it's kind of like nice because, I mean, everyone's like, whoa, way to go, you peacemaker, you. And then sometimes they get, I don't know, international recognition. What would be really nice international recognition for helping countries to like not fight wars with each other? Nobel Peace Prize. And Teddy Roosevelt got that on the basis of helping to end the Russo-Japanese War, and also, write this down, helping to resolve a dispute in North Africa in 1906. Okay? What's that? They've always had war. Because something is taking place and you're not aware of it, doesn't mean it's not taking place. Look behind you. The world is a big place. There's a lot of things going on. And a lot of it doesn't jump up in whatever news feeds that most people get or check.
I'm just saying, like, I don't really see, like, I just don't see, like, a lot of history over, like, wars and places like Canada or, like...
Stick around and, yeah, I mean, it's like you guys learn more about, like, the relationship between the United States and Canada than most people in the United States of America. I mean, when you studied the War of 1812, and you were like, really? We went to war and tried to take over Canada? I did not know that. Most Canadian students know it quite well, but most Americans don't. They're like, oh, that was so far back. I mean, is it really, like, affecting our relations with Canada today? Hey, no. We get along great with Canada. So, I mean, it's a very good point. That's one of the reasons that, yeah, I mean, that's one of my chief things is I feel like people operate better with a greater understanding of history, and so you stick around and you take IB history and so forth, you're going to learn a lot about what took place in the 20th century, including wars in Africa and some very difficult situations there, and sometimes some really, really horrible, ugly ones where lots and lots of people were killed. And sometimes the United States is like, let's pretend it's not going on so we don't get, I don't know, like killed in the process. Because what happens sometimes when you try to intervene between like two, I don't know, here we go. Maybe a bad analogy, but let's say like you got two cats that are fighting. Have you ever seen two cats fighting? Have you ever like tried to intervene and go, hey, little kitty kitty, stop going after this little kitty kitty? Yeah, I mean, it's like they're going to like, and take it. I mean, if you want to like break it up, just sort of like, oh, you know, really loud, bah! And then maybe one cat will go that way and the other cat will go that way. But it can be dangerous. Shh. Yeah, intervention sometimes can be dangerous. Non-intervention can also be very dangerous, too. You're like, oh, I'm not going to stop these people from killing each other. Wow, they're still killing each other. Anyway, I digress. Speaking of Japan, write this down. The United States and Japan actually had a pretty, fairly good relationship with each other in those early part of the century, the United States and Japan. We'll see that it'll go kind of bad as we get into the 30s and Japan starts like continuing to take over China. And we try to stop them from doing that, and then they attack us at Pearl Harbor, 1941. But that relationship between the United States and Japan gets a little bit uncomfortable because of, you ready? Write this down. Racist attitudes in the United States towards Japanese immigrants. Oh, we had racist attitudes in the United States towards Japanese and Chinese immigrants, right? Which is why Idaho, once upon a time, had a huge percentage of its population as Chinese. But then, with all kinds of discriminatory laws put in place, they couldn't really do much work, and they're like, man, we're out of here. I mean, once upon a time, a lot of the Idaho miners were fed from vegetable gardens in Garden City, along what ultimately became known as Chinden or Chinese Garden Boulevard.
Oh, what?
Yes.
Where you're coming from?
Yes. Yes. That was part of Idaho history. There were eventually, we can write this down, eventually there were so many discriminatory laws on people of Asian descent that it became very hard for those people to continue living in parts of this country. Japan, I'll give you an example, and this is where Teddy Roosevelt actually intervenes. And this is interesting as far as the analogy today. Today, does President Trump have a lot of control over local schools? No. Does he try to voice his opinion about whether schools should open or close or things like that? Yes. Teddy Roosevelt did the same thing over 100 years ago. Write this down. Teddy Roosevelt looked at what was going on in, of all places, San Francisco, which if you look at it today, it is a very liberal part of the country and so forth, right? Nancy Pelosi was one of the representatives from that area. Well, during Teddy Roosevelt's time, the San Francisco School Board had a policy. It was an anti-Japanese policy. I think it was like they couldn't go to school. I mean, if you're a Japanese kid, you couldn't go to the local school. And so it makes it a little bit problematic when, Teddy Roosevelt's having negotiations and so forth and contacts with the Japanese government. They're looking over and going, how are you treating these Japanese people living in your country? And so Teddy Roosevelt put pressure and did get the school board in San Francisco to relent and to allow Japanese Americans to actually attend classes and so forth. And it'll be great ever since then. It's not like the United States is ever going to go, oh, we have suspicions about the loyalty of Japanese Americans in our country during World War. Oh, yeah, we'll get to that. When we get to World War II and we get attacked at Pearl Harbor, you're going to see all kinds of people, including the president, Franklin D. Roosevelt this time, going, yeah, we're going to go ahead and incarcerate you all. Put you in confinement in camps. Relocate you to the middle of Idaho, Minidoka. That's where everyone wants to go, behind barbed wire or what have you. Anyway, so we got racism going on. We already talked about that. That's going on here. Meanwhile, let's get to the next slide. Teddy Roosevelt organizes a goodwill tour for a big chunk of the United States Navy. It's called the Great White Fleet. It has nothing to do with racism. It's painted white, so it's really quite stunning. The thing that's most impressive about this fleet is it's modern, and it's powerful, and it conveys a very clear message from the United States that, hey, don't you want to have us as a good, powerful friend? And hey, don't you mess with us, because we got a Navy, we can afford it, and it is great. I mean, this is the Navy that was responsible for sinking the Spanish Navy over in the Philippines and in Cuba. The Great White Fleet. A goodwill tour to each other. And the Japanese actually liked seeing the fleet in there. They're like, hey, we got no problems with the United States of America. Write it down. 1908, the United States and Japan issued, a treaty or an agreement with each other to respect, a pledge, to respect each other's territories. So Japan's like, well, we got Manchuria, and we got Korea, and we got some other areas in the Pacific. I think they were honing in, and I think by that time they had gotten Taiwan. Of course, what do the United States have in the Pacific? The Philippines and Guam. So there we go. We got that. Okay? A lot of Filipinos coming over to the United States during that time, and of course Puerto Ricans coming over to the United States at that time as well. Okay? Settling, migrating into the United States. Is it really? Oh my gosh. Next time, we will talk about Teddy Roosevelt and William Howard Taft and how they transitioned from one presidency to the next, and then it became ugly. So we'll talk about William Howard Taft, his dollar diplomacy, and we'll get into problems between Roosevelt and Taft. Okay? So we'll pick it up from that point on. All right, so we're good. Yeah, no, everything kind of flies by.